Hello everyone, this is Jean from Linkurious. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar. We will be talking about getting started with Cosmos DB and Linkurious Enterprise. So for today's webinar, I'm joined by Luis.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Luis Bosquez, and I am a product manager at Microsoft. I work primarily on Azure Cosmos DB as the Gremlin API database product manager.
And as for myself, I'm one of the co-founders of Linkurious. On the left, you can see the agenda for today's webinar. So Luis will be presenting Cosmos DB. Then I will explain what is Linkurious Enterprise and what it does. After that, we will discuss some use cases of Cosmos DB and Linkurious Enterprise. And finally, we will do a demo. During the course of today's webinar, feel free to type in the chat section any questions that you have, and we will take them at the end of the webinar. And now I will let Luis take it from here.
Okay, thank you very much, Jean. So the premise behind Cosmos DB is the idea that modern apps are always facing new challenges that have the same scale as their application requirements. Modern applications have a requirement of managing and synchronizing data distributed across the globe, which means that applications are no longer restricted to a single region in the world. Modern applications also require a low latency response. This is real-time requirements for most data applications. And then one of the global solutions that are being able to be seen as the largest number of applications that have been developed in the last couple of years have a requirement of distributing data globally, building real-time experiences, usually within the realm of IoT and e-commerce applications, which is what we have seen as the applications that benefit the most from these solutions, as well as making use of simplified development using serverless architectures. This is including solutions like Azure Functions or other serverless components. In the case of analytics, we've seen samples and applications that follow the pattern of using a separated memory middleware that processes data, and this is usually done using Apache Spark, one of the most modern distributed computing runtimes, as well as lift and shift scenarios. One of the patterns we see is people start using open source databases and start developing with them in order to eventually move to the cloud as soon as their app reaches productization or as soon as it reaches a point of global scale. So Cosmos DB was built for solutions that follow these patterns. Now, what is Cosmos DB? So for those of you who are not familiar with Cosmos DB, the following explains all of the features of Cosmos DB. So at the top, we have 6 interfaces. Cosmos DB is a non-relational database that leverages interfaces to create or to contribute with a specific connectivity, and it defines the data format, it defines the programming language, and it defines the drivers that will be used against the database. This includes the SQL API, which is our version of a non-relational document access using JSON, Cassandra API, which is the open source Apache Cassandra, MongoDB API, which is the based on the specification of MongoDB, Table API, and Gremlin API. As well, we have a JavaScript engine that runs directly on the database engine. Today, we will be talking about the Gremlin API. So the Gremlin API is a database of kind of a graph database. This database contains all of the main features of Cosmos DB, which include turnkey global distribution, which is what you can see in the bottom, which is the degree at which your data can be distributed through the many Azure regions around the world. Azure has the largest number of regions in the world, meaning that we have 55 regions to distribute your data automatically to. We have elastic scale-out of storage and throughput, which is our way of scaling horizontally, which is our way of dealing with larger and larger data sets. So you can start with a small database and elastically increase your size of your data and increase your capacity of processing this data throughout time. We also have guaranteed low latency, meaning that our base guarantee is that a single kilobyte operation will take at most 10 milliseconds, if, of course, reading from the same region for 99% of the cases, and 15 milliseconds for writes for 99% of the cases. So we have 5 well-defined consistency models, which ranges from strong to eventual consistency, as well as comprehensive SLAs, which includes guarantees for every single one of these parameters, of these capabilities. So how does, I will quickly go through each one of these differentiators. So how does scale out of storage and throughput work? Basically, we have a horizontal partitioning system and a throughput provisioning system. The horizontal partitioning is the way that we just add partitions in the backend to increase the size of your data and the scale of your database without actually having to interrupt or have downtime for maintenance in any of the areas of the database. We also support a elastic scale of throughput by actually provisioning request units. So request units determine how many requests in a second a database will be able to handle, and that can change at any time. As I mentioned, we have a benchmark for a 1 kilobyte operation to give you a guarantee of how fast the database can be, which is something that is not necessarily common amongst cloud databases. Cloud databases don't usually have guarantees in terms of how fast your operation can be done. Cosmos DB does this, and our guarantee is that a 1 kilobyte operation from the same region will take 10 milliseconds in 99% of the cases, even 6 milliseconds in 50% of the cases, whereas writes will take 15 milliseconds in 99% of the cases and 10 milliseconds in 50% of the cases. Turnkey global distribution is our way of distributing the data synchronously. So data distribution throughout many clusters is a complicated challenge, especially if you use replication. Replication on Cosmos DB happens asynchronously and automatically. And you can use this to distribute your data. So if you have customers in, say, Paris, in France, and in the West Coast in the United States, which is where I'm at, you can create a data set that is the same on both regions. And so your data for your customers in France will be reached at a faster rate and your data for your customers in the US, in the West Coast, will be also reached immediately by searching the local closest data center. This can also be used for manual and automatic failover, and this is whenever you want to protect against a data center going down, which is already a rare event. You can use this replication mean to do that. We offer replication both in single master and multi-master scenarios. We have 5 consistency models that go from strong to eventual consistency to give you options to trade off some performance for data consistency. Just to give an example, strong consistency is the ability to have every single one of your replicated databases to copy the same data on every operation. And eventual is the fastest one by actually providing an experience where only one database has to copy and receive the data before the operation is acknowledged as completed. And we have options in the middle. So databases like DynamoDB or other databases in the cloud only offer limited options in terms of consistency, whereas we offer a range of options to optimize the database consistency to your application needs. We support multiple models. Gremlin API is one of them, but basically this means that you can leverage the open source connectors and the open source programmability with Cosmos DB. So whether it's the case for a Cassandra database or a Graph Gremlin database, this is all automatically supported, and you don't have to change the code of your application. It still will be able to use the same feature area and functionalities as well as the same drivers. We offer automatic indexing to address the need of faster reads on a non-relational database. So a non-relational database does not have a set schema. And so people often wonder, well, doesn't that give a disadvantage in terms of the speed at which you can read the data? And that is true, which is why we offer automatic indexing for all of the properties by default. This is free and asynchronous. And synchronous, which means that at every database write operation, the index will be updated And this works across any data model, including the graph data model. And last but not least, we have a set of comprehensive SLAs, which means that we guarantee the following options. Otherwise, you will get your money back from Microsoft. This is latency, which is what we talked about, for 10 milliseconds for 99% of the cases. 5 nines of availability, which translates to 8 minutes per year in terms of downtime. Guaranteed throughput to the level that it was set, and guaranteed consistency to the level that it was set. Now, about security, we have enterprise-grade security and a team of security experts at Microsoft always monitoring the latest security vulnerabilities and addressing them with features in the database side. We support encryption automatically at rest and in transit. So every time your database operations, even if the packets of the database client were to be sniffed, they would be encrypted at the end source. Encryption is automatic, and there's a comprehensive set of Azure compliance certifications, including HIPAA and GDPR compliance, that we are always compatible with. So those are the reasons you can choose Cosmos DB for your database, especially your graph databases. We're the first and only database with global distribution at a turnkey capability, meaning that it's clicks away for it to be distributed. We deliver massive storage and throughput, provide low latency, support many different types of data, have 5 consistency models, and this will enable your mission-critical applications optimized for cost using the cloud, even address big data with the Spark integration, and enterprise-grade security for your data to be completed for your modern application. In this particular webinar, Jean will use Gremlin API to talk directly to Linkurious, and Gremlin API on Cosmos DB is one of the few fully managed cloud graph databases. This is completely compatible with the Apache Tinkerpop database standard, which is an open source standard that has been around ever since 2010. It contains all the benefits that we talked about before, and is compatible with open source drivers and connections using the open source standard Gremlin database language and all the Tinkerpop specifications for graph databases. So with that said, let me send the microphone over to Jean, who will tell us a little bit more about how Linkurious works and how to use this graph database in Cosmos DB with Linkurious.
Thank you very much, Luis. So we have seen how easy it is with Cosmos DB to really scale the storage and the querying of large graphs. But how to make this graph data that can be very complex accessible to business users? So there are tools out there, such as Gremlin, that make it possible for developers, data scientists, to retrieve information from graph data. But business users are not expected to use a query language such as Gremlin to find information. So how can we enable them to do such things? That's where our Linkurious Enterprise product comes in. Linkurious Enterprise is a platform that connects to your graph database and makes it available via a very intuitive, very easy to use interface. Through that interface, non-technical users can search, edit, explore the graph, and find hidden insights. So here is a bit of an architecture overview that explains how this setup works. So you can store your data on Cosmos DB and also use Azure Search to provide full text search capabilities. You connect Linkurious Enterprise to these two products, and then your business users can easily search and retrieve information from your graph. So once again, Linkurious Enterprise is directly compatible with Azure and specifically with Cosmos DB. It's really a great solution to make your Cosmos DB data available to end users. Today, we are working with more than 50 clients around the world. These clients cover a wide range of use cases and verticals. among all clients are governmental institutions such as the French Ministry of Finances, but also financial institutions such as Zurich Insurance or NGOs such as ICIJ, the organization behind the Panama Papers. Now, I would like to talk a little bit about some concrete use cases where Cosmos DB and Linkurious Enterprise can add value to organizations. And I will start with anti-money laundering. So on the right, you can see a bit of a graph where we have one person in red here connected to a first corporate structure, which itself is connected to more to one and two companies here, but also to another company here, and finally to a bank account there. So this represents the sort of complex corporate structures that people who want to obfuscate their assets or to launder money put in place to avoid being detected. Cosmos DB and Linkurious Enterprise can help reveal these hidden connections and surface evidence of money laundering. We have been involved in the Panama Papers, where the Linkurious Enterprise software has been used by a wide range of journalists to reveal such opaque corporate structures and evidence of money laundering. Another example of the use of Linkurious Enterprise and Cosmos DB and of the graph approach is related to law enforcement. So we are working with organizations that are interested in data about phone calls and telecommunications, and they want to identify suspicious activities. So you have an example of that on the right, where we can see that one person here is calling another person here, who in turn is calling three other persons, who in turn are contacting another larger set of persons. Visualizing this data as a graph reveals that there's something weird going on, and it looks like a bit of a command and control structure where one person is communicating information, communicating orders to a wider organization. And finally, the graph approach that is enabled by Linkurious Enterprise and Cosmos DB can be used to fight against fraud. So you can see an example of that on the right, where we have 1, 2, and 3 clients that are connected to 1 and 2 claims. But we see by looking at the connections that instead of being unconnected, 2 of the clients, this one and this one, are actually sharing a phone number, which is suspicious and can be indicative of fraud. So we just ran through 3 concrete examples of applying the graph approach to reveal hidden insights in your data. Now, what I would like to do is to give you a concrete demo of using Linkurious Enterprise and Cosmos DB to find hidden insights in graph data. So let's get started. So this is the Linkurious Enterprise dashboard. You can see here a visualization that was created in the past. And here we can see a search bar that we can use to look up entities of interest in our graph. Right now, we are connected to a dummy dataset that consists of data related to clients and to the claims that they are associated with. In a few seconds, we will be trying to explore that data to assess whether a specific client called John Piggyback is a risky client or not. But first, I'm going to show you how easy it is to connect Linkurious Enterprise to Cosmos DB. So I'm going to click here on Admin, click on Data, and we can see what information need to be provided to connect Linkurious Enterprise to your Cosmos DB instance. So basically, it's a Gremlin endpoint, information about your database, your collection, and your primary key. With this information, you can then connect Linkurious Enterprise to your Cosmos DB instance and make it available via a very easy to use web interface. Now I'm going back to the visualization screen. As I was saying, we are interested in a specific client called John Piggyback, and I want to look him up, look at his connections to assess whether that client is a risky client or not. So let's get started. I'm going to simply type some texts. I can see some information appear. So we see specifically that we have a customer with full name, that is John Piggyback. That is the one result that we are interested in. So we are going to click and open up a visualization. Okay, so this is the visualization canvas of Linkurious Enterprise. We can see on the left panel detailed information related to the node. So that node is a customer. That node has an age property with a 42 value. That node has a country and a full name. All of that is entirely customizable and depends on what is within your Cosmos DB instance. What is interesting to me right now is the little 6 next to John Piggyback. So that number represents the number of undisclosed connections that John has with other entities. I can double click and retrieve all of these connections at once. And I can see that John is connected to an address that, as a customer, I provided when he signed up with the insurance company. He has also provided an email address, a phone number, and more information. But maybe I don't want to retrieve everything at once like this, and I want to be more specific about the way I want to traverse the graph. It's easy to do so by clicking here on Expand, and maybe only retrieving the claims that John is connected to. Or maybe retrieving the email address. Or once again, retrieving everything at once. So the visual interface of Linkurious Enterprise makes it very easy for anyone to dynamically explore the graph and find information. Right now, we can see that John is connected to 1 and 2 claims. So he's been involved in two accidents. So maybe he's not such a great driver, but nonetheless, doesn't make him a criminal. If I want to, that data can be displayed on a map, and I can see exactly where the accidents happened. I can zoom in and see more information about that one accident, for example. But I want to focus my investigation right now on this phone number that John is connected to, since it seems to be shared by someone else. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the phone number. And what happens is that we retrieve a new connection, a Paula Smith, who seems to be sharing that phone number. I'm going to go ahead and double click. And we see that Paula Smith herself is connected to a number of entities. First, I can see that she's not connected to any claim. So if I were to look at it quickly, I would say that she's a good client. But she does seem to share an email address with someone else. So I'm going to double click to get more information about that. That someone else is called Werner Striedman. And he's connected to another claim. I can zoom out a little bit to get an overview of the situation. And we can recap quickly what we are looking at. So we started with one client, John Piggyback, trying to assess whether he's a risky client or not. And what we have uncovered by looking at his connections and his indirect connections is that instead of being a lone isolated client, John is connected to Paula Smith, who is connected to Werner Striedman. The 3 of them are involved in 3 distinct claims. And if I dive deeper and look at that claim that Werner is associated with, I can see that it brings us back to our starting point because it's connected to an evaluator and to a lawyer who are both connected to the claims associated with John. Zooming out a little bit now. So what we have is 3 distinct clients connected with a lawyer and an evaluator and connected to 3 claims. What we may be looking at this point is a ring of people who know each other and who coordinate to create accidents that are then turned into claims with the help of a doctor and of a lawyer. So it really looks like something fishy is going on and like we are facing a fraud ring. I have some data on the screen, and maybe I want to make it easier for myself and for others to understand. And in order to do so, Linkurious Enterprise offers some tools to really make graph data, which can be complex, easier to understand. So in order to showcase that, I'm going to go to the filter panel and show how easy it is to slice and dice the data. So I'm opening up the filter panel on the right. I can remove non-relevant nodes. So maybe the addresses are not so interesting to me and I can discard them. Same thing for the customers. Maybe I don't want to look at them. I can remove them from the visualization. But maybe I want to be more fine-grained about the way I'm filtering the data. So maybe I can look at the claims and specify that I want to only display the largest claims. So when I click here on claim and amounts, I can see the way the claims are distributed in terms of amount. So we have one claim that represents $5,000 in damages. And we have 2 other claims at the end of the spectrum representing some $15,000 in damages. So maybe I want to only display the largest claim. So I'm going to create a filter. And I'm choosing to remove the lower values to really focus on the largest claims. So it's fairly easy to slice and dice the data based on such numerical values. It's also possible to take into account time and to select some properties, some nodes or relationships based on their time. So here I'm clicking on time. I can see how the different claims are distributed in terms of time. And once again, we have one node here, and it represents a transaction that happened in late July. And at the other end of the spectrum, we have 2 transactions that happened in February 2019, so fairly recently. Maybe I just want to see the older claims. So I'm going to create a filter, and I'm going to remove the newer claims to refocus on the older claim. Okay, so now I'm canceling the filters. So what we have seen right now is how easy it is really for non-technical users to slice and dice the data to make the graph less complex and easier to understand. Okay, at this point, maybe we have uncovered something interesting, an interesting insight, a fraud ring that we want our team to look at to make decisions. So we can save the visualization and we can share it with colleagues. So I'm going to show you how to do so. I'm clicking here. I can click on save. I can give a name to my visualization. And know that visualization is saved and will appear in my dashboard the next time I open up Linkurious Enterprise. I can also export the visualization. So maybe I want to do some post-processing. I can export the visualization as an Excel spreadsheet so that I can look at it, look at the data within that spreadsheet. Or maybe I want to do some reporting, create a presentation or something like that. The easiest way to do that would be to export a nice picture that I can then add to my presentation. Okay, Another option is to actually share the visualization with a colleague. So let's say that I'm working with Mosan from my team. I want him to have a look at the following that we uncovered, so that maybe he can dive deeper into the data or share his thoughts on what we have uncovered. So I'm going to go ahead and add him to the visualization. So it's very easy, and Mosan will be able to access the visualization and use the full capabilities of Linkurious Enterprise to make sense of it. Okay, and finally, it's possible to publish the visualization as a widget that can be embedded into any HTML page. So you can see a bit of a preview here. You can customize the look and feel of that preview. Maybe I want to enrich it with a search bar, for example. Okay. Maybe I want my users to be able to zoom in, zoom out. Okay. Once you are satisfied, you hit on publish. And now I've generated two things. I've generated a URL that can be used by anyone with access to the server to view the widget. Or I can use that snippet of code to actually add to an HTML page. So that process, we have done it in a very manual fashion. We have generated that widget manually, but it can be automated via the Linkurious Enterprise REST API to facilitate the integration of graph visualization capabilities into third-party applications. Okay, going back to the dashboard now. So what we have seen is how easy it is with Linkurious Enterprise to look for information in the graph, explore the graph dynamically, ask questions via the filtering capabilities of Linkurious Enterprise, and find answers that can then be communicated. Linkurious Enterprise makes the content of your Cosmos DB data very easy to understand and accessible to everyone within the organization. Okay, thank you everyone for attending today's session. You can try Linkurious Enterprise for free on the Linkurious website at linkurio.us. You can also try Cosmos DB for free by registering on Azure's website. Once again, thank you for attending today's webinar.
Thank you very much.